Hey, EMDR community. Laurie Bellinger here, EMDR therapist and consultant, bringing you a second video on sensory and why we can utilize the senses as a way to increase felt safety in the therapy room. So this is just a quick series of simple tips based on sensory, and today is the second one. So if you haven't checked out the first one, I'd encourage you to go ahead and see. So what am I talking about when I say felt safety? Felt safety is very important to me when we're talking about quality processing. When we talk about the window of tolerance as something I talked a good deal about in the last video, that it's not just about deciding intellectually that we feel safe enough to be able to deal with a target for reprocessing, that it's essential that we're able to connect in with the body enough to be able to tell if our nervous system, if our body actually agrees with us, that we've done enough resourcing, we've done enough container, enough co-regulation, enough things to be able to be safe enough to do quality processing. Without this, we get into all kinds of difficulty in terms of our nervous system deciding nope and shutting down, and we don't have good access to the target anymore. Or the other, which is an abreaction, where we get very upset and have difficulty being with ourselves in the processing. So neither of these are things we want to have happen in EMDR therapy. We want people to stay, I like to call it, on the window ledge. So just within our ability to tolerate, to deal with this, and stay completely present and safe enough. So how do we do that? I would argue that if you've done a great job with your assessment and history in phase 1, and you've done all of the preparation, you've done great psychoeducation and resource development went really well in phase 2, and you've set up, a high SUDS target in phase 3, that while it may look like we're all good to go, I'm going to argue that you need these 3 basic components in order to do very high quality processing. First, being able to activate the target well, which I'm going to tell you has something to do with sensory, to be able to co-regulate deeply as the therapist, to co-regulate with your client, which also sensory can give you a bit of an edge with this. That's that seesaw of 1 foot in the therapy room, 1 foot in the target, and the balancing act. And then this third aspect, which is overall client sensory awareness and supports in session. So at a later time, I may make videos about co-regulation for you, the therapist, with your client, or about ways to really boost and activate a target when someone's having difficulty with that. But today, we're talking about sensory supports and resourcing. So, our senses as resources. My last video covered a few simple ways that EMDR therapists can use olfactory sense as a resource. So if you haven't seen that yet, please go back and check it out. Today, we're going to talk about one of my favorite words, proprioception. And then the final video in this quick series will be on vestibular. Okay, so what is proprioceptive other than a really cool sounding word? I learned this word from an occupational therapist. If you are a mental health clinician and EMDR provider and you don't have an occupational therapy buddy, please find one. This is a field that really deeply understands the physical connection between the mind and the body and has all kinds of wonderful resources to share with us in EMDR therapy. Proprioceptive, basically put, is providing information to the brain constantly about your position, movement, how you're oriented, the location of your body. One way to understand this is I found this really cool breakdown of your sensory system from a journal article. And so have a look at this. When we say sensory, people often think of these initial ones: taste, visual, smell, balance, auditory, right? And we talked last time about olfactory, so smell. But this last one, it's a little bit harder to wrap our heads around sometimes. This sixth sense, which is divided into all these complicated things. And we're just going to focus on the bottom one here, proprioception. That's your body's ability to understand things like pressure. One way I'll explain proprioceptive input to my clients is that you can tell the difference between a light touch that might even cause you to itch. Like, see if I'm poking my hand here, if you're looking down the bottom corner where I am, between a light touch and a deep push, right? Which becomes like, me poking my hand. That being able to tell the difference, that's your proprioceptive sense. So how else might we think about proprioception then? Well, proprioception is that deep sense of pressure and joint action and muscle tension that you can use. And when you activate your proprioceptive sense with this deep pressure, it actually helps calm down the nervous system. So if you have a client who's becoming activated because something is a bit too much, the proprioceptive sense can actually help calm things back down. So some of the things that I've used over the years have been weighted items, deep muscle tension, different kinds of exercises for that. A person can have a deep hug from a support person, or they can do a really firm self-hold, right? Like a self-hug. There's pulling and pushing. So there's different ways that we can pull or push in order to activate muscles. And these are very calming strategies. So what's practical in session in EMDR therapy when we are trying to process, let's say, a high SUDS target, and we are trying to give people a little extra assistance to be able to stay within their window of tolerance while they're doing this, to feel a little bit more grounded, a little more secure, and to stay connected to the body in a safe way. So what I'm offering you here are just 3 simple tools. The first one is a ball. I have a 4-pound weighted ball that I got from an occupational therapy site. I list one here for you. And this 4-pound kind of squishy, heavy ball is something that I will sometimes toss back and forth with a client, or they might hold something like this heavy in their lap. And this can be a very grounding, soothing, connecting kind of item. The second thing I have for you here is weighted blankets and lap pads. At this point, these have become so popular, you can even find a weighted blanket these days in your local Target. It used to be, once upon a time, when I first learned about weighted items, I would go to this website that I've listed for you. It's magicweightedblanket.com. So this is one of the original sites. A lot of occupational therapy sites also have specialty weighted blankets and lap pads. You can get them in all kinds of different textures. They are now washable. It is easy to get ones that are non-porous. So if you're concerned about whether or not they might, there might be different ways to clean things, like ones that are not permeable, you can just wipe down, spray and wipe down. And other ones can just be nice and soft, but you would want to run those through a washing machine. There's all different kinds out there. This one that I have in my lap right now, I call my artificial cat, and it weighs about as much as a cat, but it doesn't scratch anyone, and I'm not allergic to it. So sometimes I'll have a client who will put this in their lap, and that feels grounding and connecting. One thing to be aware of is that everyone's different. Some people feel trapped by a heavy weighted item. So this is really up to personal preference and experimentation and finding what your client feels comfortable with. I also have a giant 16-pound weighted blanket that especially some of my teenagers really, really love. They like to pile it on their legs or wrap it around their shoulders and feel a little bit more secure. The third thing that I wanted to share with you is called a TASPER. This was actually invented by the folks who are at the DNMS Institute, the Developmental Needs Meeting Strategy. If you've ever heard of this, it's a great resource. There's some really good products as well as some excellent ego state training available that is very EMDR friendly. And they sell this TASPER on that website, and I have one. And what I love about this thing is it seems to be impossible to break. So a client can hold on to the handles and put the bar under their feet and be sitting on your sofa and just pull. And it's a really nice, safe, like no one's going to get hurt kind of way to get deep pressure into the nervous system. And it does really help calm things down if someone's feeling a little upregulated and needs to bring it back down. Okay, so proprioception. It is now your new favorite word, yes? Something so simple, so natural that you can utilize in EMDR in order to help your client feel safer, more connected to their body, better able to tolerate some of the difficult targets that you're going to try to process together. If you have ever heard other EMDR therapists talk about their practice being very somatic or embodied or sensory informed or integrated, this is a good place to begin that exploration, to start kind of like putting a toe in if you would like to move in that direction, which I would very much encourage you to do. So have some fun exploring. Next time, I'm going to make one more video on sensory coming up relatively soon. The next one's going to be on your vestibular sense, and why this too is really awesome to understand more about and to be able to utilize in EMDR therapy. So thank you very much for your attention. I appreciate any feedback, and have a great day.